Alright, so today's movie review is War and Peace from 1956, starring Audrey Hepburn, Henry Fonda, and directed by King Vidor. So let me share some behind the scenes details about War and Peace from 1956. Henry Fonda later admitted he had known from the very beginning he was too old for his character Pierre, and he only made this movie for money. Another detail, Audrey Hepburn's salary of $350,000 for this movie was the highest salary an actress had ever received to date. When notified of her record salary, Hepburn modestly told her agent, "I'm not worth it, it's impossible, please don't tell anyone." Alright, and then lastly, for the filming of the epic battle scenes, the producers hired 65 physicians, dressed them as soldiers, and scattered them throughout the location to take care of any extras or stuntmen who might have been injured during the filming of scenes. Alright, so those are just some behind the scenes details about this movie. Now I'll get into my thoughts on the plot. So the plot, I gave it a 3 out of 5 for two reasons. One mainly is I love this story, and I especially love the 1966 Russian film version of this film that's about 7 hours long, divided into 4 parts, directed by Sergei Bondarchuk. I love that so much. That got me very interested in the War and Peace storyline. And so when I heard that there was an Audrey Hepburn one, I was very excited to check it out. Personally, I don't think they executed the plot very well. You know, what's interesting is that 7-hour one feels very well paced and whatnot, and it is divided into 4 parts. That really helps. So you could kind of take a breather from it and whatnot. But this one is 3.5 hours. And I'm not going to lie, it's very slow. See, other 3.5 hour films like Lawrence of Arabia or even films like, even modern ones like Lord of the Rings, those go by quick. You're constantly, being intrigued and whatnot with the story. This one, I don't think executed it very well. And for some reason, it seemed to be a little bit sillier, a little bit almost like a screwball comedy, when it was the peace moments in War and Peace. And it was very odd, especially when compared to the war scenes and whatnot that were not like that. Now, I could get tonally, you want to show that they're very different from each other, but it almost felt like 2 different movies. So I wasn't a fan of that, and that's why I gave it a 3 out of 5. Again, it felt more Hollywood too. It felt a little contrived and whatnot, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I just felt this story, they talk about it, it's the greatest romance, adventure, all of that, and I think they kind of skimmed out personally. That's just me. That's why I gave it a 3 out of 5. Let's move on to the acting. I also gave it a 3, I'll be honest. Henry Fonda, he seems kind of bored to me making this movie. Like, he does not seem like he wants to be there, anything like that. And another thing that really bothered me, every actor, so Henry Fonda, who's American, Audrey Hepburn, I believe she's British, so many of the other cast, they're all supposed to be Russian, and nobody is attempting or even close to sounding Russian. Now, I'm okay with films where all the actors are speaking English, but I wish the accents were consistent. Because everybody's speaking their own accents. Like, Henry Fonda's talking like he's in a Western. Audrey Hepburn in one of her romance movies, she at least sounds a little bit more elegant and dignified and whatnot, and kind of fits in with this story. But nobody else really does. I just did not like it. The actor Mel Ferrer, who plays Prince Andre on the right there, he's just boring. I didn't like his performance at all. I just don't think he really could execute it very well. All around the cast, while stellar, and a lot of them good, really good, like Henry Fonda and Audrey Hepburn, I just don't think it was a right fit. Now, would it have been better with all Russian actors? I don't know. The 1966 film by Sergei Bondarchuk kind of proves otherwise, but that one feels like an art film first, and then everything else after that. This movie just feels like a Hollywood film with some nice, beautiful cinematography. And another thing that bothered me was the way that they were talking, the way they were saying their words and whatnot, felt very 1950s. It did not feel 19th century at all, and I was very bothered by that. So all around, that's why I gave the acting a 3 out of 5. All right, let's move on to directing. So this is the first time I have seen a Charles Vidor film, and I hear he's really great. He did films like The Crowd, The Champ. He also did some uncredited writing on like The Wizard of Oz and a couple other movies. I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Where he does really, really well, and his strengths are in the scenes in the battle and wars and whatnot, the war part of War and Peace. It's the peace part that I don't like at all. Because the thing about War and Peace, at least with the other version, is you're just as interested in what the people are saying and talking about as you are with the battle sequences. And they work really well together. For me, I just like the battle sequences. I did not like any of the talking or any of that. Again, I was bored. It just felt a little contrived. That's why I gave it 3 out of 5. It almost felt like a comedy. It was so weird. It did not fit tonally at all. Alright, so kind of talking about that. The cinematography and special effects, I gave that a 5 out of 5. I'll give credit where it's due, man. It looked incredible. So many of the battle scenes, the costumes, the set, just everything like that in general looked amazing. It was incredible to see what they were able to accomplish. Some of it looked like it was on a set. Some of it looked on location, such as the scene right here. Well, in the sense of being outdoors, right? I don't know if they went to Russia or not, but yeah, it looked really, really good. I was very impressed with what they were able to accomplish here. And that's why I gave it a 5 out of 5. It was well done, well executed, and it's just too bad the rest of it wasn't as good as this. Alright, let's move on to the music. Music, I'm going to be honest, gave it a 3 out of 5. It's very forgettable. It's just generic. The only good music, in my opinion, is when they're in the opera. Natasha Rostova is, right? And they're hearing, the classical music in there. That's the only music I really like and is memorable to me. Everything else, I don't remember any of the score, anything like that. And so that's why I gave it a 3 out of 5. Now, compare that with Bondarchuk's. Bondarchuk's music really fits the tone. It really hits home everything that's going on. Like when we're in the war scenes, it's very dreadful. It's very depressing and whatnot. And then when they're dancing, like there's a famous dancing scene in that movie. It's beautiful music. That one is just so much better. You can't tell. Anyways, the music, 3 out of 5. Alright, so let's look at the score overall. It tallies to a 3.4 out of 5, which I'm running to just barely a 3 out of 5. Just under a 3.5. And that makes my Criticlist score 68%. So would I recommend this movie? No. If you want to see a really good adaptation of War and Peace, check out the 7-hour cut by Sergei Bondarchuk. It's on HBO Max, and they have it divided up into 4 films, so 4 parts, and each part's like an hour and a half long. That's how I recommend watching it. And it just is such a great way of looking at this story and a great way of showing just the different progression as time went along. My favorite part of that, personally, is the 1812 one, which is where the whole crux of the Napoleonic Wars takes place. So, invading Moscow and whatnot. So I recommend that, the 1966 one. This one, everything they do wrong here is fixed and better in the Sergei Bondarchuk film. Like the music is better there, the camera work is better there, and I like the camera work here. The acting is so much better. Just the way it flows is so much better too. The editing, everything about it. And it's a 7-hour film. I don't know how he was able to do it, but it's so good. This movie is not that. It's pretty forgettable. I think there's a reason why you don't hear people talk about it very much, which is so sad because so many of the actors here are great actors and actresses in their own right. I mean, again, Henry Fonda and Audrey Hepburn, they're some of the greatest ever. It just goes to show how important script writing is, how directing is, how all of that is. Because you could have some of the best talent ever in the world, and they can make a dud. And so, overall, I do not recommend this movie. All right. So now let's break down my criticless score here. Is there any graphic language? Not really. Just your in fact, I don't think there's any at all. I would say none, honestly. Okay, violence, I would say a bit more. It is still 1950s, so when there's blood, it looks a little cartoony. It's not super gory or anything like that. The 66 one, though, is a lot more realistic. It gets pretty brutal. This one, not so much. Generic. Okay, nudity and sexual content. There's a lot of romance and kissing and, the period piece dresses that are kind of low cut. That's pretty standard, though, for films of this, made around this era and whatnot. So nothing out of the ordinary. I would say it's very, very mild. So maybe a bit, but there's no actual nudity or anything like that. All right, political bias. I don't think so. I didn't really notice anything. Now, some would say, the story of War and Peace might be. I mean, a political film about the history of Russia, right, when Napoleon was invading and whatnot. But Tolstoy wrote it, I want to say in the 1850s, 1860s. I'll have to check that. But so the movie, though, was made in the 1950s. I didn't feel any communist sentiment or anything like that, and definitely not in the 60s one either. By the way, Tolstoy. Let's see. The book was written in 1869. Yeah. So. Anyway, this film, I would say none. There's no political bias to it. All right, in regards to family friendly, the only reason why I'm saying no is not because of any graphic nudity, any language, nothing like that. I don't think kids would be entertained by War and Peace in general, even the really good 60s version. I think kids need to be older, probably high school. I don't know, do kids read it in high school? I don't even know. That'd probably be a better age. So I would say wait until your kids are older just so that they can understand it. But again, not this one, but the other version. So entertainment value, I would say a bit. It was really boring, I'm not going to lie. But what did really sell me was were the war scenes. But that's about it. All right, well, those are my thoughts overall on War and Peace from 1956, and that is today's movie review.